Warning: if you can't accept my opinions and feel the need to hate on me because of them, don't watch this video. In this video, I will be talking about which faces I think are overrated versus which I think are underrated in the PSL community. I also want to note that I do not use the traditional PSL scale. I use my own scale, which tries to make the ratings align with who people in reality find most attractive, while still making the scores logical and consistent based on which features and ratios they have. Also, I am aware that sometimes appeal differences can lead to equally or more attractive faces being seen as less attractive. For example, in my scale, if comparing two people with the same level of harmony, maxillary projection, and features, one of them cannot score higher than the other individual, even if the majority of people favor one of them. Note, my scale does not automatically score someone who is more popular among the opposite gender higher, but it tries to align at least to some extent with reality. For example, I think that if faces like Anna Speckhart and Nicole Meyer score higher than faces such as Monica Bellucci and Jennifer Connelly, there's something wrong with the scale. But at the same time, I always try to have a logical reason to why someone like Anna and Nicole score lower. My reason in their case is a lack of midface projection. On the other hand, someone like Renee Simson might have scored lower than Monica in a poll I made, but there's no logical reason other than appeal to why she wouldn't be higher than Monica, so she gets a higher score. See, I do not rate based on who gets the most votes. Now let's get into the main subject of this video. The first overrated face of this video I will be discussing is Adriana Lima. Adriana is probably the most famous female in the PSL community. When you think about the term looks-maxing, or PSL, you immediately associate it with her. This causes her face to be glazed a lot, which makes people overrate her because hype affects attractiveness a lot for people with untrained eyes. Think about Jeremy Allen White and Timothée Chalamet. These are seen as attractive mainly because of hype. When you hear looks-maxers say that Adriana Lima is one of the most attractive PSL goddesses 1,000 times, you will start to believe it. That's just simple human psychology. Also, I am not saying that she isn't attractive. I am just saying that her face is overrated. When you look at her face in an analytical way, you see that there's something missing that makes her face less aesthetic than some other faces. Many people make the mistake of only looking at the big picture, her coloring, hair, and eyes. They don't stop to really observe the face. I am pretty sure that most people do this mistake. This same mistake is what causes most men to simp for those 6 out of 10 women with caked-up faces and their hair done. Remember that when rating faces, you should think only about how aesthetically pleasing the face is, not how hot they look. Adriana would be in the top 3 most attractive female faces if she had better mid-face projection. But remember that I still rate her in the high 8 range, which in my scale means the same as a 9 in most other scales, since 9 means 1 in over 10 million in my scale. Also, the extent to which you are attracted to a face is subjective, but how aesthetic it is objective. If you, for example, don't find Brooke Shields' face attractive, it's most likely because you haven't trained your aesthetic vision by observing thousands of faces in detail like I have. These types of people only see the big picture, like I mentioned earlier. People under 20 are often automatically in this group. They see some girl with 2 kilograms of makeup and nice hair and immediately think they saw a 10. This is because their brains are usually not fully developed yet, which makes them only notice exaggerated features like unnatural lips, jawline, eye color, and hair, especially hair color. That's why blondes are so hyped up by teenage boys. If you are under 20 and don't belong in this group, congratulations! You are way ahead of most people. I have to admit that I belonged to this group when I was a teenager. I genuinely thought these girls with orange faces and blonde hair were beautiful. Nowadays, I think they are average. Also, at that time, I just hadn't been exposed to truly beautiful faces because the PSL thing hadn't started yet. The first time I saw Adriana was when my sister was saying that she was the most beautiful woman. I didn't know a lot of female faces back then, so I agreed, but I never truly found her attractive. Every teenager sometimes imagines what life as a rich celebrity would be like, dating the most beautiful women and living a rich lifestyle. The thing is that when I did this, imagining that Adriana would be my girlfriend, I deep down would rather have chosen some 7 out of 10 from my high school. This is because deep down, I never found her attractive personally. But if someone had asked me who the most beautiful woman in the world is, I would probably have answered Adriana Lima, even though I didn't feel attracted to her in the slightest. This was because of me brainwashing myself to believe she was number one. The first time I saw Brooke Shields or Monica Bellucci was different, though. In those instances, I felt genuine admiration and attraction and couldn't stop looking at edits of them. I got as much dopamine just from watching these faces as from listening to my favorite songs. I remember a time when I was trying to justify Adriana's alleged beauty by finding good pics of her, but I never felt anything. It was a very different case with Brooke, Monica, and Jennifer Connelly. I soon started to notice that Adriana's face just wasn't that aesthetically pleasing compared to these three, and recently I got the answer to why. It was because her face was too flat, lacking midface projection. The other reason was her lower third, which I never found appealing. Sometimes I also ask myself, have these guys who glaze Adriana so much even seen more than her photoshopped pictures? Have they watched videos of her without filters? Because when I search her up on Google, most pictures that pop up are photoshopped. Also, as I said in my previous video footage is always preferred over pictures when comparing facial attractiveness. It's not like a face stays still all the time in real life. In real life, we are constantly switching angles and expressions. 1 second you are seen from the side profile, the next from the front. That's why I don't really like to separate the side profile from the front profile. They are both part of the same big picture. Often, you are seen from an angle where both your side profile and front profile are visible. You can't hide a bad side profile by always facing the viewer in real life. This only works in pictures. Another thing about Adriana is that her biggest flaw becomes apparent when she opens her mouth, which is something that is not seen to the same extent in pictures, but if you watch footage of her, this is very apparent. I guess the guys who like her so much do so more because she's hot, according to them, rather than ethereal, like a face over 9 out of 10 should be. She is most likely also seen as exotic by many people, but personally, I don't buy into this Latina appeal. It feels very cliché to me, but as I have said, she is still in the high 8 range, just not over a 9. People don't realize how small a minority models without elite mid-face projection are. Think of it like this. Mid-face projection to models is like height for basketball players. Just because you're tall doesn't automatically mean that you are an NBA-level player, but it increases your chances significantly. Just like there are elite models who lack mid-face projection, there have been short players in the NBA. But yet all of the best have been tall. It's the same with Adriana. She might score high, but she can never reach the top 10, just like a short NBA player can't. This is because people like Brooke Shields and Renee Simson have harmony in the 90s just like Adriana, but on top of that, they also have elite mid-face projection and good features. It's the same with NBA players. Some short player might be elite level at everything that isn't related to height, but so are the top-tier tall players. So in the end, the tall ones will end up on top. An example of an underrated face, in my opinion, is Jennifer Connelly. I often see her rated as an 8.4 or something, which is way too low. She is the most famous PSL goddess outside the PSL and looks-maxing community. Her edits have hundreds of millions of views. She's even more famous than Brooke and Monica. Her face gives me an instant dopamine boost. Her harmony is very high, and she has elite mid-face projection coupled with good features. Her face is very unique and memorable. You rarely hear about her in the PSL community compared to many others, despite her fame outside this community. I hear the names Gio Scotti and Blanca Soler more often than Jennifer Connelly, which makes no sense since she scores higher than both of them. Yes, maybe she isn't at the same level of facial aesthetics as Brooke Shields, but regardless of that, I find her to be very underrated. Some features, like her thick eyebrows, might be seen as flaws by some, but they make her look unique, which is a good thing. She is both striking and attractive. Her green eyes stand out in optimal lighting, but even in less flashy lighting, she is extremely beautiful. In fact, I find her even more attractive in some of her less famous movies. For example, the most famous shots of her are from the movie Career Opportunities, but I personally find her face to be most aesthetic in the movie Étoile, where her green eyes don't shine as much as in some of her other movies. One thing that confuses me about many face raters is that it almost seems like they skip ratios, such as the chin to philtrum ratio and face width to head height ratio when measuring harmony. The reason I suspect this is that some people who score low in these two ratios get insanely high harmony scores. Take, for example, Anna Speckhart. Even the average person who knows nothing about facial aesthetics notices that her chin and head are abnormally long. Note, her face is not elongated. Her midface ratio and FWR are actually perfect. It's the chin and the head as a whole that is the problem. Such a face can never score over 90% harmony. You may ask how this relates to Jennifer Connelly. Well, I think her harmony score gets nerfed because many face raters ignore these two ratios. She scores perfectly in these. Yes, her nose width to mouth ratio might not be ideal, but she has many other perfect ratios to make up for it, giving her an extremely high final harmony score. Not in the 90s, but not far from it either. The next overrated face on my list is Dolph Lundgren. The problem with Dolph is that, for some reason, people have come to the consensus that he is somehow a 9 out of 10. My question is, how have these people come to this conclusion? I respect Dolph Lundgren a lot, and he is a genetic freak with an IQ of 160, standing at 6'5" with an elite physique. How could you not respect this guy? The problem, though, is that just because he has these qualities doesn't make him a 9 out of 10 facially. As I said, I respect Dolph and would like to rate him extremely high, but there are no features that can justify a score of 9 out of 10. Road to 1% said that he has 86% harmony, but I have no idea how he got this score, because Dolph does not have many ideal ratios. And by ideal, I mean over 92% close to the ideal. His eye distance is ideal, but apart from that, there's not a lot that is perfect. For example, his facial thirds and mid-face ratio are close to ideal, but if you want to score 86%, close is not enough. He also lacks elite maxillary projection. I think the main argument for people scoring him so high is his dimorphism, but I think even that is overrated just because he's blonde. Let's imagine that we would change Dolph's coloring to match that of Hernan Drago's. Who would look more dimorphic? The answer is Hernan Drago, and it's not even close. Yes, his dimorphism is high, but there are a lot of people who score much higher in dimorphism. I think Dolph is mainly overrated due to being exotic. You don't expect to see a blonde, Swedish macho man with a good face and physique who stands at 6'5". The hype would not be at the same level if he were some 6'5" Middle Eastern guy with similar but dark features and the same exact physique. I saw a video where some women in the comments section were simping for Dolph. What I noticed was that they were all Latinas, which makes sense. He is exotic to them. The Swedish people in the comments seem to be criticizing his behavior in the video rather than simping. Note, I am not claiming that Dolph is not a Chad. I am just saying that he is not a 9 out of 10 and not an 8.5 either. The next underrated face is Renee Simson. Renee has the highest facial harmony out of any person in the world. She also has elite mid-face projection and decent features. I made a poll, and the most common vote was 8 out of 10. 25% voted 9 out of 10, 20% 7 out of 10, and 10% 6 out of 10. This is most likely due to familiarity bias, which a guy in my comment section pointed out. We tend to underrate faces that are not familiar to us and overrate familiar ones. Another thing about Renee is that when you search her up on Google, the top pictures don't do her any justice. The pictures are clearly not made for the male gaze. I would call it the modeling gaze. I have to admit that I too used to underrate her, but that was because of the bad pictures. It wasn't until I saw her on video that I realized that she really is as beautiful in practice as theoretically. Like most of the top 10 female faces, she is a lot more videogenic than photogenic. Many of you may say that her dimorphism is too low, but her harmony and mid-face projection make up for it. I think another reason she is underrated is that she doesn't have very good facial expressions compared to some other PSL goddesses. In fact, her facial expressions are one of her biggest flaws, but that's not related to her facial attractiveness. It has to do with appeal. The final reason people underrate her is that there just isn't a lot of footage of her. The next overrated face is very controversial, just like Adriana Lima. It's Yael Shelbia. Yael is another example of a face that is carried by coloring. If we remove that, her face is just not that aesthetically pleasing to watch. I almost feel like she is a bit niche-maxed. Her harmony is good, but she lacks mid-face projection, which makes her face look a bit flat. She also seems to have a slightly negative orbital vector, meaning that her cornea sits slightly in front of the infraorbital rim. This makes her eyes appear slightly bulging. She is the peak example of a very striking face, but her attractiveness is definitely overrated. The last underrated face of this video is Henry Cavill. Henry's mid-face projection is one of the best in the world. His harmony is also close to 90% or even above. I have still not analyzed it myself, but others have. On top of this, he also has very high dimorphism. And yes, he has a couple of flaws, like a receding hairline, a bit too thin lips, etc. But these flaws are compensated for by his good features. The reason I think he is underrated is that he is, in my opinion, above Brad Pitt, whose name you hear much more often in this community. Although the name Henry Cavill is heard decently often, I feel like he is in the shadows of other, less attractive PSL gods like Hernan Drago, Sean O'Pry, and Jordan Barrett. Henry also rarely seems to score above 9, when in reality, I think he should be ranked at least a 9.25 out of 10 due to his mix of harmony, mid-face projection, and dimorphism. I think he is one of the most handsome male actors of all time, certainly in the top 5, behind Alain Delon, Matt Bomer, John Eric Hexum, and Vasily Stepanov. The amount of female attention Henry gets is next level. Every video of him, even those with bad lighting and angles, the comment section is full of women simping for him. If Henry, for example, mentions the word cardio, you know what all the women will be commenting in the video. I went through the comments of a similar type of video of both Henry Cavill and Chris Hemsworth, who, by the way, will be in part 2 of this same subject. The difference in the amount of simp comments was like night and day, even though Chris is even more famous. Just like with Chico, these women come up with creative and cringe simp comments about Henry. Most of the comments are about him being the most stunning man they have ever seen. This video definitely needs a part 2, since there's plenty of overrated faces I want to talk about. Please comment down below which faces you think are overrated or underrated. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment which videos you would like to see in the future.